And that means that my grandmother was the immigrant from Greece. My sister and I are the last 100% Greek in our family. We both married non-Greeks. And growing up as an Eastern Christian is a very different thing. Most people aren't even aware that Eastern Christianity exists. Western Christianity and Eastern Christianity were the same until the year 1054. And in that time, because of personalities and different histories and different kind of cultures, the two churches separated. So the 5 ancient centers of the church were Rome, Alexandria, Jerusalem, Antioch, and Constantinople, which is today called Istanbul. And the concern was because the Bishop of Rome had accreted a lot of personal civil authority because of the invasions of the Goths and the Visigoths. And so he was in charge of the water, the sewer, the food distribution, everything. And there was a cultural difference because he now changed the idea of first among equals, which was the guiding principle for the first 10 centuries, that all are equal, and yet there's a first. Just like in the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Father is the first among equals. Now that blows your mind logically, okay? But that's how it was. And so the Bishop of Rome at that time, because of his history, declared, guys, we're going to do it this way. And the 4 bishops of the East said, no, that's not first among equals. That's you telling us what to do. And so the Western model shifted to a hierarchical model where the power of God came down through this little funnel called the Pope and then out to all the people. Whereas the 4 bishops of the East retained the early model of the Holy Spirit is decentralized and in all places. And out of that, we choose the holiest person to be the priest of the village. And from those priests, we choose the holiest person to be the bishop. And so it was a totally different cultural model. But it was also a very different model in terms of the philosophical basis, because in the West, Rome was much more oriented to logic and legality, whereas the East was always more focused on Oriental, what you would think of as Asian mystery. And so today I'm in my tribe here because I was raised believing all the things that you agree with. And I'm not that familiar with the Unity Church, but Judean told me about it. And so the difference is that I grew up in a mystical tradition. I grew up in a tradition full of ritual that the nature of the ritual caused you naturally, if you follow through it and pay attention, to become deeper and to meditate during your worship service. We use a different means of doing it than you do here. What I noticed today is that it's very appropriate for the Western culture that we live in, that this same thing that I believe is being presented in a way that's totally different from the way I grew up with it. So it's just so interesting. I also noticed that they used a girl in that video. And then I looked around and there's like 5 men, 6 men here. That's a pretty good ratio because I think it's because of the nature of the people who are attracted to this kind of spirituality. Anyway, I was a teacher for a long time, and I'm a flaming introvert. So, it takes me a while to kind of warm up and also to kind of expose myself. So what I did was I built on the idea of an interior community, like interior family systems. And so I wedded my 1 or 2 people who were really flaming extroverts with my teacher. And I got through life that way and was able to stand up and teach, so I tend to talk like a teacher, and I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm trying to soften that today.
We were teachers.
Yeah, good.
Some of us are such.
Well, I think I hid out as a teacher, for a long time. I hid behind my intellect for a long time, which is what a lot of people do, particularly if you're an introvert. So I thought today I'd try quickly to go over some of the basics of different talks I've given to address the differences in meditation and contemplation, and then the particularities of centering prayer and why, for me, that's the path of the modern Western path that has allowed me to really grow spiritually in a way that my own church did not help me to. Meditation and contemplation are practices that are used for mental, spiritual, and emotional growth. While they're often used interchangeably, they have distinct approaches and goals. Meditation is generally active with a primary focus on technique, while contemplation is receptive, a surrender to the awareness of the presence of God. So centering prayer, which I'm here to talk about, is a form of contemplation derived from ancient Sufi and Christian sources. It was renewed in the 20th century and practiced globally by persons now from all faith traditions. All the faith traditions talk about kind of the levels of consciousness. And because my personality led me to be a psychotherapist, I love models. And models help me understand things. Developmental models, Erickson, anybody, all those models you've ever heard of. And what I find they have in common is that they have more or less four levels. The first level of consciousness is about kind of being a receptive person in a way that is victimizing. Life appears to be governed by external forces. This would be what you are when you're a small child. And it's appropriate because that's all the brain that you've developed. You don't have control over your environment. You might question, why me? Why does it happen to me? And you really don't have the ability to exert your own will. As time goes on and you grow, things, instead of happening to me, become about happening to it. I'm more interested in law and the reasons for things. I can use affirmation, visualization, mapping. I can have effective treatment for specifics. I can control my thoughts in my life, and I'm developing my will muscles. The next level is where most of us in this group are living. Most of the time you live 50% in one place and you're 25% in the place before and 25% in the next place. So most of this group, I think, and myself, live in this through me place where we become vessels. Meditation is a receptive openness. It's a vehicle through which the Spirit speaks and acts within us. It is not I, but God who does the work. And so from moving from my will to your will, God, be done. And of course, the final level, which I think not a whole lot of people achieve in this world, is God is as me. I am one with God. And that is a person that lives and walks in the divine or mystic mind. Oneness with the Spirit. They wear that lens all the time. I am one with God. And that is, of course, called, guess what? Unity. Yeah. So to move from one kingdom to the next, you have to let go of something. In the basic one, you let go of blame and shame. In the next one, you let go of control and personal power. In the next one, you let go of your ego separation from God until finally you are in unity with God. So that's kind of the basic background. The difference is that the West starts by discussing things on the material plane, takes them to God, and informs them with God, and then brings them back down and applies them to the material world. In the Eastern method of meditation, you begin with God, you start with the meditation, you bring it down to earth, and you apply it to your daily life, and then you return up to God. So I don't know interiorly what your experience is, but they are slightly different experiences. I won't say that. I won't say that either. Okay. So there's too much to say. So basically the difference is called cataphatic contemplation or apophatic contemplation. Cataphatic is from the Greek word phos, which means to show forth, and kata means to go toward. So this is a type of meditation that uses imagination, and this is very common in all the Western Christian traditions. Examples are Ignatian contemplation, Jesuit contemplation, divine beauty contemplation, meditating on nature and the beauty of God. And the goal is experiencing God through imagery, through your feelings, and through reading, scripture, meditation. Apophatic contemplation is more typical of the Eastern Christians. This is a definition of letting go of thoughts to experience divine mystery beyond words. It's a little bit different. Examples of this are the book The Cloud of Unknowing, surrendering the intellect to the experience of God in the silence of the heart. The mind descends into the heart, according to St. Gregory Palamas, who was living in about the 14th century. And so apophatic means showing forth by moving away from your thoughts. And there are two different ways of doing meditation. They both will bring you to a beautiful place of unity. Just depends, what's the recipe for you? And when I lived in Golden for most of my adult life, I went to lots of stuff up in Boulder. So I went around the block like a lot of us did in search of what is the thing that's for me. Now, I think you have found it by being here today. But I went through, all the Naropa stuff, everything you could experience in Boulder. And and I still wasn't satisfied. So the key differences that I would say between meditation and contemplation is that meditation's focus is on concentration, awareness, and mental clarity. The method is techniques, breath, mantras, movement. The goal is mindfulness, relaxation, and insight. Contemplation is surrendering to divine presence and spiritual union, receptive openness, resting in that presence, deep spiritual intimacy, and transcendence. So meditation is, major traditions are Buddhism, Hinduism, secular and New Age. Contemplation, major influences are Western and Eastern Christian mysticism and Sufism. So both meditation and contemplation foster inner peace, insight, wisdom, connection. Meditation also involves active techniques, while contemplation is surrendered awareness. Centering prayer is a contemplative Christian method developed in the 1970s at St. Joseph's Abbey in Spencer, Massachusetts, by Father Thomas Keating, Father William Meininger, and Father Basil Pennington, 3 monks, when they noticed that the Christians were getting off the subway and stopping in at the monastery and asking directions to the Buddhist monastery down the street. And after a while, the monks got to thinking and said, we have a Christian mystical tradition, and we need to translate it to these people who are gravitating to the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So they started to teach the other monks and to practice very clearly and articulate what this Christian mysticism was. Now, Father Keating is the one that continued it, and what he realized is that you need community for something to continue. That Meininger and Pennington were not interested in following through with this type of community. They wanted to stay in their monastic community. But Father Keating found that not only the monks were enjoying learning about this, but the lay people in town were coming. And so he founded, in 1984, Contemplative Outreach, And that's headquartered in Denver. It was up from Snowmass when he was in Snowmass. And Father Keating had the wisdom to develop it to promote the practice in small communities worldwide. So now it's practiced internationally by many people who are not even any kind of Christian, but who have found this particular method to be helpful. The core philosophy is that centering prayer is a relationship. It's not a practice. Its method of silent prayer focuses on growing your intimacy with God. It's just like a relationship with a friend. At first, just kind of get acquainted. Then you spend a little more time together. Then you might get to intimacy one-on-one. And so the given is that you have to spend time together. You can't just expect a relationship to happen if you show up once a year. So the Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God," is kind of the foundation of it. But it's not about words, but about resting in God's presence. So I put some materials over there for information if you want more. The method is pretty simple. You choose a sacred word. It's not sacred because it doesn't have to be holy, peace, anything. It could be banana. But it's, yeah, but it's because it's representing your intention to rest in God. And so you speak the sacred word, and then you let go of thoughts. And it's like you're in the river, and the river is flowing down the river, and the thoughts are on the bank, and you're just flowing past them. Okay? So every time you think a thought, the brain was made to think. And it's not going to just stop thinking. So you never get worried if you think a thought. You just gently let go of it and return, if you need to the sacred word. Or if you don't need your sacred word anymore, just return to resting in the presence of God. And the key is that there's no judgment. Every time you think a thought and you notice it and you let it go down the river, you return just like a feather floating onto a pillow. No judgment about, oh, I thought a thought, I'm a bad meditator. No, that's not it. If you return the feather to the pillow 100 times in 2 minutes, you have shown your intent to return to God 100 times in that 2 minutes. So it's just about silencing the mind, letting go of the words. God's first language is silence. And so we're learning to speak God's language. And that's what it's all about. Yeah, it is, very much. So many things are similar. You know, he just happened to hit on this because it's what sold in Boston at that time. And everybody picked up on it. So it is a method that works. Because it leads you on a lifelong journey of consent to God's presence and action within. I love it because it does have steps. Okay? So I need steps. And the spiritual journey, which is on YouTube, and I put the thing on there, if you're interested, what it gave me, coming from a mystical tradition that just did the same. We didn't have developmental religious education. We didn't even have Sunday school. I mean, you know, and the liturgy was all in Greek, and I spoke Greek, but not High Greek. And anyway, I needed some tools, and this thing gave me tools. And the thing that gave me the tools was this YouTube video called The Spiritual Journey. There's 63 episodes. But it's very practical, and it's based on 3 things that we're trying to become aware of and let go of in our daily life, not just in our meditation. And that is the need for security or affection, the need for power or control, and the need for esteem. So you just use these 3 yardsticks, and you analyze what's going on today. And which one of these 3? And it gives you all kinds of tools and examples to help you figure out, how do I work on this? So I don't have to just give it to God and say, God, you work on it. I have some tools I can actually use. And that's what attracted me to centering prayer and why I've chosen it to be my way. So my tribe is meeting at my space over there because I'm an introvert. I was a church person all my life, raised my kids, and now I'm done with that. And I have the stripes to prove it. And I'm very happy meeting with a group of contemplative prayer people. There's 4 groups in town. We meet at my house on Fridays at 1 o'clock. We meet on Thursdays at St. Matthew's Church at 27 and a quarter Road in Patterson. And there's 2 groups that meet at Immaculate Heart of Mary both on Tuesdays, one at 1:30 and one at 7 p.m. So those are existing groups. And we're always open to starting a new group. If there's people somewhere else, we'll find a facilitator to come and help people do that. But the fruits are the same as the fruits that you talk about. People talk about the gift of centering prayer as deep awareness of my inherent goodness, oneness of divine desire, and my surrender to that desire. It's my hug from God. It's letting go of being a God chaser and just letting myself be in the beauty and the spirit of whatever is, living in the present. It's a direct experience of giving and receiving love. So we don't need to be afraid of the word mystic. It simply means one who has moved from mere belief or systems about God to actual inner experience. The Hindus say, man points the finger to the moon, the fool sees only the finger. Yeah. So that's what I have to say, and I'm open to any questions. I'll show you these resources. I'll put them over there. This is the overview, Open Mind, Open Heart. That is the history and philosophy of contemplative prayer, centering prayer. And this one is really the how-to book. It summarizes everything that you're going to see in those 63 episodes. So if you want, if you're like me and you need a how-to book, these will be laying over there and you can look at them. Okay, any questions or comments? Would you like to?
Did you know Father Keating when he was in Snowmass?
No, I didn't know him. I met him a couple times, in Denver. I went to a retreat with him and what's his name? Ken Wilber. You know Ken Wilber?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a riot. It was so funny because they were both on stage. It was at a hotel in Denver, and Father Keating was sitting in a chair like this with a little bottle of water next to him in his little Benedictine outfit. And Ken Wilber came on stage late wearing a expensive sharkskin suit. He had them place an overstuffed chair on the stage for him with a bottle of Perrier. And he came up to the stage and he spent about 4 minutes doing this elaborate introduction of Father Keating. How important he's been in my life and how important he's been to everybody in the world and how wonderful he is and what a spiritual teacher. And he sat down in the chair. And it was obvious he expected Father Keating to do the same for him, which of course he did not. And he just said, well, let's get started. And we started. So that was my best experience of Father Keating, because there were only 40 people at that retreat, and we had 2 days with him and Ken Wilber. And Ken Wilber kind of made himself scarce, but Father Keating was so available. And at one point, this was really early when I was first starting, and I said to him, he told me something or other, and I said to him, you mean I have to forgive every priest who's ever hurt me? And he started laughing out loud and said, of course. I mean, it was like, yeah, where you been? Yeah.
I love the imagery that you gave as the feathers hitting the pillow.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that described in many different ways. And you mentioned TM. Did you study any of Maharishi University stuff?
Not really. I have a passing familiarity with it, but
So I like that rather than, because they say pretend that you're on the ocean and the waves are all, happening like monkey mind up here.
Yes.
And you're trying to sink down into the peace
Yes.
of the ocean.
Yeah. Which is why they use the lotus, because the root goes down to the dirt down below. It's really rooted. It just looks like it's floating free. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever floats your boat, Yeah. 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 You have to find what works for you. And I'm so glad that you have found it here together. Beautiful community. I'm just delighted to know you. So I don't know if you normally do a meditation time together. If you do, I'm not going to lead you in centering prayer. It's the same thing, Yeah, go ahead.
How did you meet Julian?
How did I meet Julian? She found me somehow.
Sounds like her.
Yeah, I don't remember. You'd have to ask her. I have those brain farts at my age, and I'm not sure how she found me, but she found me through somebody, maybe through Ellen. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I had heard that learning to meditate was kind of like training a puppy, which kind of stuck in my mind because you just have to keep working at it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. Father Keating recommends 20 minutes twice a day for maintenance, and says in the morning is good when it's quiet, especially if you're like me in an older age, you wake up early anyway, so it's such a beautiful time of day when everything is peaceful. And the second 20 minutes, not at bedtime, but around 4 o'clock, when you need to re-up for all the evening stuff, especially if you have kids coming home from school. You have to refill that reservoir of peace. And so he recommends 20 minutes twice a day for maintenance. And if you want to make progress, then more. Maybe 40 minutes twice a day, or 60 minutes twice a day, or 20 minutes 3 times a day. Making time for meditation is especially hard when you're younger. Once you're retired, it's usually a little easier. I've found that now that my husband suddenly dropped dead 3 years ago, it's a whole lot easier to meditate, a lot more